We spoke yesterday about the straight and true way that we can make a change in our lives. That tshuva, returning, penitence, returning to God, returning to our inner truth. As we explained, tshuva, penitence, tashuv hey, to return the hey in God's name. Because not only have we affected God's name, the latter hey, because we're speaking here about tshuva tata, the lower level of tshuva, which is about our actions, about our speech, and about our thoughts, meaning our behavior, the garments of self-expression. It's the garments that makes the person, because it is our behavior. So, what is the straight and true path, the direct path? The Alter Rebbe said there's two things. First is compassion. Compassion over our very soul. That our soul is a part of God, and look what we've done to affect it. And compassion on the source of our soul, which is the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God. That we've affected, that through doing something wrong, we bring the Shekhinah, divine presence, into a greater exile. And when we contemplate that, that will help us to bring the presence of God into our reality. That will help us to become closer to Hashem. Further, we said that it's not always capable. We're not always capable of having the presence of God. Only the righteous are. We are working to be a Beinoni. So in that case, how is it that when the presence of God, that we will still be able to not go astray, we'll still be able to go on the direct, straight, and true path of connecting to Hashem? And that is through a broken and humbled heart, is what the Alter Rebbe started to explain. What does it mean, a broken and humbled heart? Well, here's the paradox. On the one hand, we're having compassion on the divine within me, but I don't just have a divine in me. I also have an animal soul. I also have, we call it an animal soul because it has a nature like the animal. What's the animal? It's all about itself. Even the compassion that the lioness will have for the cubs is instinctual. It's just the instinct. Or that the dog will have for its master. It's instinctual. It's not divine. So we call it an animal soul. It's the human condition, that it is self-directed and seeking its own pleasure, its own happiness, not a connection to God. That nature of our body / animal soul that gives vitality to it, that the Alter Rebbe explains that the nature of that part of us needs to be humbled. It needs to be humbled. How do we do that? So we need a broken and contrite, a humbled heart. Why the heart? Because the heart is where the expression of the animal soul, we call the evil inclination, resides. It's in the heart, and the layers of the heart. The natural instinct of the heart is, even if your heart felt to do good. However, the heart, by its natural inclination, it's about me. It's about my feeling. So I feel good when I do good, so I'll do good, fine. Okay, here we're talking about doing sin. We're talking about that you did something wrong, a transgression. So it's going to come from the heart of what makes me feel good. And therefore that needs to be humbled. We need a contrite heart. So King David, before he became righteous, which eventually became righteous, he would fast. And through fasting, he would diminish the nature of the body and the animal soul that gives vitality, and he would transform it ultimately, right? As he says, Libi chol b'kirbi shaharga b'tainis. Sages actually explain on the verse in Tehillim that he destroyed the evil inclinations through fasting. Okay, we're not going to do that, and that's not where we need to go. What we need to do then is it's called Mara de Chushbena, a master of accounts, meaning own your stuff. Whatever things that we do that are wrong, and specifically here we're talking about the things that are more of a serious nature, that can bring excision, that can bring being cut off from God by heaven. Those things we need to truly own. How do you own it? What does it mean you own it? Well, when you think the following, the Alter Rebbe says, when you think about when you do something wrong, what actually happens, and you meditate upon it for enough of a time that it's actually going to make a difference within you. It's actually going to affect you in a heartfelt way, because that's where the problem begins, and therefore we want to be able to touch that heart of ours. What are you going to think? What are you going to contemplate? That the sin, the transgression that we have engaged in has brought the divine presence, the Shekhinah, right, which again in God's name is the latter Hey. In God's name, it is now fallen from its rightful place and gone into exile. Greater exile through my transgression. So, simply put, so I've affected God's presence in this world through what I've done. Something that we've noted earlier. Furthermore, I've also caused the spirit and the divine of my divine soul to be uprooted from its source in the divine, which is the source of all life. I've uprooted my soul from being connected to its divine source. And not only have I uprooted it, but I've defiled it. I've even brought a sense of death to it. Now here's an interesting idea what death means. Death means that you've brought vitality into a place of defilement, sitra acher, the other side. There's only two forces within God, maybe it's the wrong way to say that. Everything comes only from God. When we do a mitzvah like we're doing now, we're getting vitality. The vitality is direct from God, from His holiness, from His inner will. And we're being attached to Him through the study of Torah as we engage right now. I've given the metaphor before, like a mother feeding her children. The food is really an embodiment of love, of vitality. Food is vitality. And she's doing it lovingly, face to face, eye to eye, giving that vitality, the food, the love, from the inner desire of the mother. So likewise, when we're doing a mitzvah, same thing. When we're engaged in something sinful, so the vitality is also coming from God. But now, it's coming from a place of death. It's come because it's negativity. It's not life. We have taken the vitality that could have been that life-giving inner connection to God, and now we have brought it into a a negative place. Not only have we brought it into that vitality to a negative place, but we actually become now a vehicle to the negativity, to that place of death. Death is the opposite of life, the opposite of divine, of holiness, of God and godliness. So what does it mean we become a vehicle to it? In other words, it controls us. We see in our lives, how often do we see this, that we're out of control in our minds, in our hearts, and maybe in our actions even. We're out of control. Why are we out of control? It's because we've allowed the negative forces, Sitra Achra, the other side, place of defilement, called even death, because it's deadening, that it's controlling us. Terribly. That's what sin ultimately does. And that we are we're receiving our vitality from there. With this we can understand what our sages say in the Talmud, that the wicked, while they are alive in their lifetime, are called dead. What does it mean why are they called dead? Because the vitality that they're getting, where they're receiving their energy, is from a dead place, Sitra Achra, negativity. And that's what defines an evil person. So someone who has lost that control, they can maybe even doing mitzvahs, they can even be praying and whatnot. That doesn't mean a person's not, wicked. Wicked doesn't mean, Attila the Hun. Wicked doesn't mean, it could be just in your head, the negativity that's there, that you can't even focus in on your prayers, and even a desire to do tshuva. You don't even have the desire to do tshuva because you're too full of getting vitality from such a negative place that you can't even recognize that you need to own your stuff. Pretty powerful statement over here. Actually a short class, and that's the thought of the day. So doing something sinful, what does it do? It affects the divine, God himself, or the Shekhinah, the divine presence. It affects my divine soul. And not just my divine soul, but it affects me in a manner that I am being a vehicle for the negative forces. That it's controlling me rather than I'm in control. Not a good way to live. So, we gotta do tshuva. Okay, that's today's thought. Robert from Portland, Oregon. Shalom. And Ella from Arizona, good morning. I think maybe I mentioned a few already. Denise from New York. Sina Art from Michigan, Boker Tov. Mitchell from Côte St. Luc, thank you for joining. Sandy, good morning. Tracy, Diane from London, Ontario, thank you for joining. Gina, good afternoon. I guess must be somewhere across the ocean. And my mother is on. Oh, welcome, Mom. Thank you for joining. Katie, good morning to you in Texas. Zara in Delaware. And Nicole Boker Tov. And Debbie, good morning. And Mark Luzata from Poland. Thank you. All right, folks. Sharing is caring. Please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. I appreciate all of the thumbs up and all of the hearts. Absolutely. But sharing is even better. Linda, asks, one does need to do tshuva for negative thoughts as well, is a question. Yes, absolutely. According in Jewish thought, is that your thoughts are a self-expression of you that we are responsible for. So, in Western culture, it's, what you say can be hurtful. What you think, it's only between you, yourself, me, myself, and I. It's not. We're responsible for that. And we are responsible for me, myself, and I. It's not just about behavior is the way you behave to another. Behavior is the way you behave within yourself, with your thoughts. So if you have negative thoughts, we have to do tshuva for that. Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Ras Boker Tov. Gina from Ghana. Thank you for joining. And thank you all. So please share the Alter Rebbe's teachings with others. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from my home in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day.